Walsh here for our regular Chairman's Update. A lot going on. Happy New Year, for starters. And what we are looking at for sure is the state's legislative session is starting in a few days, on Monday, January 12th. There's going to be so much happening in a relatively short amount of time in Olympia during this legislative session. Of course, budgets and taxes are going to be at the top of the agenda and probably focus a lot of the attention of the legislature and the governor. As I've mentioned before, because the governor and his comrades in Olympia have negotiated several bad operating budgets in a row, we've been in this continuing crisis of shortfall of money. This is a manufactured crisis. It's not real. The governor and his minions have negotiated operating budgets that don't have enough cushion built into them. They don't have a large enough ending fund balance at the end of the budget period for the operating budget to absorb what are fairly standard bumps along the way. Emergency situations like the recent flooding that require a little more money than anticipated, or hiccups in the collection of state taxes, sales tax, or the new capital gains tax, which are very volatile. They go up and down dramatically with economic conditions and sometimes result in less tax money coming into the state government. We ought to anticipate these problems and build an ending fund balance into our operating budgets that could absorb these sorts of consequences, these sorts of changes in our economic condition. But we don't, because the governor and his budget writers are engineering shortfalls that will justify their hair-on-fire approach and their cries for new state taxes. We've talked about some of these tax proposals that we'll be looking at during this session already, but to review, the governor's favorite is a state income tax that he calls the millionaire's tax, but is designed to be rejected by the state Supreme Court and restructured into a state income tax on everyone in Washington. That's the grift. That's the scheme. That's the plan going into it. Of course, Republicans reject that. Washington State's constitution, state constitution, and our traditions in this state are that we don't have a state income tax. That's part of the reason we're an attractive place in the country and the world to come and set up business. It's been a long-term goal of the progressive left, the tax and spend left, to start a state income tax in Washington. We oppose it, and we'll fight it tooth and nail every inch of the way, no matter what fake rhetoric the current governor tries to use to justify this bad tax policy. There are other proposals we know that are going to be put forward. The so-called wealth tax, which is an expansion of the state's new capital gains tax, is likely to be proposed, and the so-called head tax, a payroll tax above current payroll taxes, a concept experimented disastrously by the city of Seattle. It's chased business out of the city of Seattle, but some of the Seattle legislators in Olympia want to put it statewide. Hey, if they're chasing business out of Seattle, why not just chase it out of Washington State altogether? Last, the proposal which we've been able to defeat the last couple of years that would increase the automatic increase in property taxes. This is the 1% to 3% automatic increase every year in property taxes. That's one we oppose too. In fact, I've heard the most recently from people complaining about where property taxes are already in Washington State. To change the formula to make them grow even faster, it would be disastrous for everyone, but particularly for retired people, and people living on fixed incomes. We're no on all of these tax increase proposals. And we want to see an operating budget negotiated with better guardrails, with a better ending fund balance, so we can absorb anticipated changes and not have to run around screaming about raising taxes every legislative session. There's more going on too. We're going to look in this legislative session at trying to fix some bad bills. The Keeping Families Together Act, which, even though it had a nice title, is exposing toddlers to overdoses of fentanyl and other illegal drugs. We need to fix that law so that troubled families where there's illegal drug use going on in the home, we can protect those kids. And there are other fixes too. I have a few bills personally that will try to give school districts an economic break on some of the costs of operating and overhead costs that bad policy like the Climate Commitment Act, the carbon tax, have been raising up and up and up. So we'll be diligently working, playing a lot of defense and a little offense at the state capitol. There's more going on still. As you know, 2 of the 3 initiatives that the party has supported qualified and will be going in front of the legislature for consideration. Those 2 are the Protecting Girls Sports initiative, that is, keeping boys out of girls' sports, and the restoration of the Washington State Parents' Bill of Rights, portions that were overturned by Governor Ferguson and his comrades. Those 2 initiatives qualified. They'll be in front of the legislature, and if the legislature doesn't pass them into law, they will go to you, to the people, for a vote this November. While we're talking about those, I should say as well, we've recently refiled the voter ID initiative, which fell short on the signatures end of last year, as an initiative to the people. And it's waiting for its new initiative number to be assigned and the other paperwork to be done on it. But once all that is done, we will have approximately 6 months to collect signatures in support of the voter ID initiative. And this version doesn't go to the legislature first. This version, if it qualifies, goes straight to you, straight to the people for a vote. And that'll be, again, this November. I also want to say before we end this week, pay attention to this growing scandal around illegal and fraudulent payments made by the state government to child care centers, which in are what we call they're basically a con. They're paper products, an LLC or a corporation that filled out its paperwork properly, got its license to be a child care center, got approved by the State Department of Children, Youth, and Families, DCYF, to receive government grants and government direct payments to watch children, but these centers never watched any children. They weren't real child care centers. But they filled out the paperwork correctly. They received those payments from the state government. And I should say, the money behind this program of making payments to certain child care centers, combination of federal dollars and state dollars. So the federal government has an interest in this expanding scandal as well. And you're going to be hearing more about federal authorities, including the FBI, looking in to these allegations that these payments were made fraudulently to non-existent child care centers, and then the money was put in people's pockets, or in some cases used as political contributions to friendly politicians. It's a growing scandal, and it's well worth your attention. It's going to be a big issue in the news in the next weeks and months. Our elected officials here in Washington, very, very nervous about this. Both the governor and the state attorney general have issued strange kind of nervously worded statements and then backed away and come back again. They're very uneasy about what's going on here. But the session coming up, starting on Monday, January 12th, is the biggest news right now. We'll include in the comments and the caption under this video the link to the legislative website where you can look up specific bills and comment on them online, pro or con. I encourage you, please do that. At least chime in pro or con on bills of interest to you. You also have the chance to write something online there, leave a comment about why you're pro or con. I'll be including more specific information, mentions of specific bills and bill numbers in the weeks ahead. But for now, try clicking through to that website, take a look at it, get used to it, and get ready to comment both pro on good bills and con on bad ones. There's going to be a lot of bad bills that you'll be ready and willing, I hope, to comment con on. That's it for this week. Hope you're doing well in this new year. Until next time, stay strong and be well.